All right, welcome back to another episode of Making Picks. My name is Nathan. I'm here with Mark. What's going on, Mark?
I'm doing all right. It's been a couple of weeks, but it looks like we're back. So it's good to kind of going to be back. Full disclosure, I did some remodeling and some things kind of like around the office. I'm sure as we make more, I'll start kind of like incorporating some different panoramic views and things like that. I'll just tilt this up over here so you can actually see that
Ooh,
I
there
got a
you go.
bunch of kind of like inventory and things like that that we're sending out and shipping out from a statement games perspective. So I'm in the process of loading up on prizes to give away as well as to sell. So no, it's. I mean, we keep talking about this transition that Statement Games is making, and we're getting closer and closer, but still a lot of work to be done.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
we'll
no,
get
it looks
there. I mean, what
awesome.
are you going to do?
Yeah. No, I saw the videos you were posting online and the transformation that you've made with that office of yours. And hey, look, it looks pretty fancy. Now I gotta upgrade, you
Yeah, I was
know?
going to say I don't have a mirror kind of like in the background. I'm not trying to like covering up with a poster or I mean I still kind of don't have the stand. You can see it. I'll bring it into
Yeah.
the equation. But usually I was trying to position the camera the right way so that it would cover up kind of like a mirror, and then I mean, it's still in front of me, but when I had the desk the old way, I had the window to the left hand side, so I always was fighting
Hmm.
sunlight coming in, sunlight not coming in. I mean, am I catching the lawnmowers kind of like outside and things like that? So I'm consciously trying to make an effort to come across as a little bit more professional and let's see what we can do with this thing here. I appreciate
Yeah.
everybody that's listening. I understand it's not like we have 100,000 subscribers or anything like that. You and I have talked about this a lot. We do this kind of for fun as a little bit of like a stress relief here. But needless to say, I am still trying to take you know some improved steps to get better at this stuff over here. A couple of seconds ago, you just sent me over some links,
Hmm.
so hopefully, and I'm not sure if I'll actually get it by the next show, but within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll have a microphone like
Yep.
you kind of have here. I don't have to rely on this. I mean, it can't cost more than $10. I'm sure I got it from Best Buy, but this is not like a high tech kind of gadget that I'm wearing here. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so now I need to upgrade myself because you're outshining me, and here I've got a trash bag on the floor back here. You can see all the scattered
Yeah, but yours
remnants
looks
of my
like a
desk,
studio. I mean, like that's fine. I mean, look,
and here's my poles for my backdrop. I could just put up my backdrop, and then you wouldn't see anything.
let's come
So
up with a number. If we happen to hit kind of I don't know 10,000 subs or something like that on YouTube, we will force you to remodel your office.
yeah, I think I just need to maybe move my desk again, but we'll see if I ever do that. If anything, I'll just throw a curtain behind me and put a green screen up of a nice fancy office that looks kind of like yours now.
There you go. There you go.
But all right, so we're gonna get into a couple topics in this episode. We're in an in between week in the NFL where we had the championship games. We know who the Super Bowl opponents are, and yet here we are. There's no meaningful football on this weekend, as the Pro Bowl is gonna do whatever the Pro Bowl does. Do you watch the Pro Bowl? Do you pay attention to that, Mark?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
What do you think the NFL could do to change for people to actually care? Would it be just putting it after the Super Bowl, maybe giving like a couple more weeks so that these players could actually get get some reps together?
No, cancel the whole thing. There's absolutely nothing that you can actually be done. I mean, there's too much coverage like of the NFL to actually, I mean, I look at it like this: it's a preseason game.
Hmm.
How intertwined are you? And I mean, they don't care. They're not kind of like going all out. It's not like a real football, in my opinion. If you and I'm not even saying that this is kind of like a good idea, but I actually think it's a lot better than what they're doing right now. If you want to have something football related on the week between the championship game as well as the Super Bowl, cancel all this stuff here. Start putting some buzz around the Senior Bowl. Put that on Sunday and go from there. Not necessarily for the action on the field, but start working with the NCAA and college football Maybe start, incorporating some of the, higher profile GMs, maybe some of the, the scouts and things like that, pull them to kind of, interviews and things like that. Start kind of like, getting their analysis and their takes on what they're seeing kind of, on the field. I'm not sure if that tips their hand on who they're potentially looking to draft in the upcoming kind of spring here. But
Yeah.
I don't know. You can do something with that and make it a lot better,
I think
in
that's
my
that's
opinion.
actually a pretty solid idea right there, just
See
to
that I'm a
kind of
fucking genius.
it
That's
starts
yeah.
integrating that the rookie season, the rookie draft content, all that in a little bit more mainstream early on, because most people don't really pay too much attention till the combine unless you're like in my circle of friends who some of them actually went to the Shrine Bowl. So
I just think
yeah.
it's interesting because in during the season, I didn't get into it at first here, but the whole kind of like Manning cast where they were watching the game, but then they kind of like brought in various different guests. I think you can actually have something like that, run it by the NFL. You have the game taking place on the background, but then you start pulling in some of the new coaches that have been hired, some of the
Mhm.
new GMs. You're starting to kind of like get little tidbits and things like that, and getting them to you know provide some type of commentary on plays that are taking place. Doesn't have to be the greatest thing here, but arm strength of a quarterback or the speed of play rate, things like that. Starting getting us more acclimated and interested in some of the players that we might not necessarily know about who are coming out into the draft.
And what they could do is kind of push the newer GMs, the newer coaches
Correct.
that just got hired to come onto this thing, because a lot of times fan bases, when a new GM is brought in, they don't necessarily know how they're going to think on certain subjects. Whereas a GM that has had a few drafts, generally you kind of know their tendencies. A lot of the guys in the draft community have even models predicting, like, okay, this is how this GM thinks, so this is how the prospect lines up. So giving that little bit of insight with these new coaches and GMs that come in might just give that extra reason to watch, that cast. So yeah, so we're in that in between period right now, so we're going to just talk on some NFL topics, and then next week we will be back with actually making some picks for the Super Bowl. I'm kind of excited to make those picks. I'm excited to hear you bash me for my Stafford love and my
You're a
Rams
fanboy. Let's be honest. It's all
fandom
right.
right now,
Yeah.
and it's fine. It's
Dude,
it's
you're
great.
popping champagne bottles from last week about
Yeah.
an ex girlfriend who is now kind of like making their way to the prom. That's the way
Yeah.
I kind of like look at it. It's cute, but kind of a little weird in the same breath.
Yeah, I could see it, but it is what it is. So and so we'll be back next week. We'll have some making picks on the Statement Games platform. But Mark, you've got a topic queued up for us that seems to be, hitting kind of close to home with your Giants fandom, and you wanna take us into what you're thinking here.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I have something looking up on the screen, and obviously, as a season ticket Giant holder, I've actually been asked by a couple different people just either to provide some comment or to come on their podcast and talk about this subject. So it's just a strange and a weird kind of situation. Obviously, it's an unfortunate situation. Um, Obviously, with Flores and things like that, kind of being, I guess, first fired from Miami, but then running into a couple of different challenges with the Denver Broncos as well as the Giants.
Hmm.
It's just a strange situation to go ahead and kind of be in. But what I actually think is the biggest story from a gaming perspective, and let's kind of be honest, that's kind of what we're covering and what we're kind of going to do here. If this is true, this is basically going to go ahead and set the market into a complete kind of frenzy. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a strong accusation. I mean, let's just put like all the race stuff kind of aside for a second here. I mean, you actually have an owner of an NFL team being accused of providing incentives to tank games. I mean, you're going to actually have all of the And maybe they're not crazy. I was going to call them crazy, wackadoo conspiracy theories, but maybe they're not so kind of crazy. Literally, kind of out of the woodwork. And I'm kind of like referring to the people who are 100% convinced that Vegas has some type of influence on players and teams tanking games.
Mm.
So
It,
that's what I was actually thinking about. But that's my main kind of thought here. I'll let you kind of respond to it, and then I have just some other general thoughts with regards to the firing and how it ties into some of my experiences. I'm sure you'll be able to parlay some stuff kind of off of that as well, and we'll kind of go from there.
yeah, absolutely. I think it. So first off, I think the Brian Flores firing was a shock because they didn't do terrible. Like they won a decent amount of games by mid-season. I think that were they were fighting with the Bills for first in that division at one point. So for him to be fired was kind of out of left field. And now I wonder if it has something to do with him and the ownership probably getting into a little bit of a beef that now Brian is taking public with this whole being incentivized to tank. Now, on your to kind of respond to your thought of Vegas having any control over that, I don't. My perspective is that Vegas isn't part of that. I think it's a owner thinking, well, we can get a better draft pick. Hey, tank, and I'll give you an extra 100,000 or whatever to do so per game. And I think that was what came out in the news. Um, I can see that. I don't think that someone in Vegas called up the owner.
I'm using it as a figurative kind of. I'm not
No,
necessarily literal.
absolutely.
It's
Well, but
basically
people
just the
take
whole
it
thought. It's the whole mindset that somehow, some way, there are some type of
outside forces.
shenanigans going on behind the scenes that the general public isn't aware about, whether it's an owner, some
Yeah.
big heavy hitting better that's basically influencing a player or coach, or some type of force on an entity to do something that's not necessarily on the up and up.
So, I mean, what about fan bases when they tank for Tua, suck for luck, like all of those things? Do do you think that
That's what
that
I'm saying.
is
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's one thing. I think it's, hey, look, fans have a right to kind of like do and say whatever it is that they want.
yeah,
But when it's coming from an owner, a coach, a GM of a professional league, whether it's the
yeah,
NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB, that's a freaking problem.
yeah. Yeah, I think that if there's a real incentive and they can prove that there was a direct like do cause and effect essentially, then I think the NFL is going to need to step in and they're going to need to issue some fines, do something to uncreate the incentive to do this scenario. Because while pulling a quarterback and when you're probably going to lose the game anyways, to not make a comeback, is one thing, but to go in and I don't know the actual situations where if he even went through with the tanking, but um the extenuating circumstances coming in that your team maybe should have won that game, but instead you've made it so they didn't. I think the NFL needs to stomp that down. Absolutely. And but the difference is you could trade a good player and become a worse team, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
I mean, look, I think the point that I was trying to make with this segment is that I understand that there's things that need to be looked into, and whatever it is that you want to do with the Rooney Rule, go ahead and do it. I just feel
Yeah.
that the bigger underlining issue is this.
Yeah.
Um, from a fire kind of perspective, I mean, look, at the end of the day here, I mean, you still kind of have a guy that signed a 5-year contract, part
Mhm.
of that contract that's being guaranteed. So basically, if he really wanted to, he can afford and have the luxury of what, almost like clearing 500K a year for the next 2 years, basically doing nothing.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think there are other hardships and unfortunate situations that other entrepreneurs like you and I are kind of going through. The hardship of Flores is not necessarily one that really kind of strikes a chord kind of within me. But then
Hmm.
again, I'm really just looking at it from an entrepreneurship perspective and from a business perspective, because at the end of the day, we've gone through a lot, especially connecting with people like I remember, you know, leaving the corporate space almost kind of 5 years ago. And at the time I was actually doing it. I was the president of a publicly traded company. I was presented with three different options. Hey, you know what? We either need you to move to Brazil.
Hmm.
We need you to move to either Brazil or San Francisco. Obviously, I'm an East Coast guy. Either go
Yeah.
out to the West Coast, or we can actually just offer you some type of compensation and kind of buyout. Um, Not necessarily ideal situations for me at the time.
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily see anybody kind of running to my aid and sympathizing with me and offering all these different kind of things right now, because I'm a 6 foot one kind of white guy.
Hmm.
With kind of statement games, I've gone through a number of different hardships. I've had people lie to me. I've had people kind of try stealing from the organization. I have contracts that kind of went bad. Whether you want to believe it or not, I fully believe that I have probably one of the best new and up and coming kind of fantasy sports kind of platforms within the market today. Um, I've been bypassed or overlooked by angel investors, venture capital people, because I may have not necessarily been at the right stage, or you know had the right story to tell kind of at the time, or because I didn't necessarily have the right relationship at the time. So are situations like that fair? I don't think so. I fully believe, you know like you, I've lost friendships over this kind of venture, not because anybody had kind of had done anything kind of wrong here. It's just it takes a very special type of person to really kind of understand what you're trying to do and build, and you just don't have a lot of freedom and luxuries that you did when you actually had almost like that guaranteed kind of paycheck, like waiting to hit your bank
Hmm.
account on a weekly basis. Is this stuff fair? No. I mean, this stuff is hard, and in my opinion, I just don't think that anybody cares, good or bad, about personal hardships or situations. And I don't necessarily look at that as a bad thing. I think that's a good thing,
Hmm.
because it means that you have the ability to change it and do something about it. But with that said, a lot of decisions that I'm going through right now have become a lot easier. I've supported a lot of business professionals over the course of the past 15 years.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of weddings, christenings, and personal things that I've kind of done and been in support of, um, with a lot of friends, personally. I mean, it's hard for me to sometimes to get somebody to freaking download an app. So let's just say that as a result of that, things have gotten a lot easier. Hey, you know what? Do you want to do this with me? Hey, you know what? I can't. And they just become easier.
Yep.
But nobody is, and I'm not asking anybody to uh, feel bad for us, or to sympathize with us. It's just the reality of things. People have their own problems and issues that they need to address and concern themselves with.
Hmm.
And I think the situation that Flores is concerning with himself with is a lot different, and it's a lot easier, because he's guaranteed basically $1 million over the course of the next 2 years at a minimum. I mean, I'm not sure if I know exactly. I mean, the report that I read was that he in 2019 he signed a 5 year agreement, $3 million.
Yep.
Maybe it was 2.5, maybe it was three. I'm not sure what type of bonuses, incentives he had kind of tied into it. I'm not sure if the Dolphins, gave some type of buyout, things like that. It's an unfortunate situation. I mean, heck, if Brian Flores wants to come work for Statement Games, I'd hire him in 2 seconds here.
Yeah.
Am I surprised about the firing? Yeah, I'm surprised. Am I completely shocked by it? No, because this stuff in our line of work happens all the time. We can't necessarily afford to spend time on the shock and awe of things. That's
Right.
how I'm kind of like looking at the whole situation.
And you can also look at the Dolphins organization, some of the things that decisions they've made in the past
Yeah, is this really a
couple
shock?
years.
Look at what I mean.
Like
Look at what this organization has done. And
they've been doing some weird things, and I don't know. I just feel like with Brian Flores, he giving him a little bit more time probably was the right move. But if there was a front office dispute, where he's
correct.
having issues with these things, then they probably just let him go and said, you know what, all right, time to move on. Which we'll see where that goes and what comes of it. As far as the whole throwing game stuff, I definitely believe that there's going to be a growing group of people latching on to this NFL is fixed thing. I already see it on Facebook, the dregs of society coming out and saying that, oh man, this pretty much confirms that NFL is scripted. I just think that's a big jump, but people are going to think it. That's just the nature of it.
Well, I mean, you've always had those people behind the scenes thinking that anyway. I mean, a couple weeks ago, you know how I like going to like that local bar because I'm trying to join that Guinness kind of like a 100 club here. I literally had a guy chew my ear off. This is before any of this stuff kind of happen.
Yep.
Guy chewing my ear off, and I just one of those things. I just couldn't get out of this fucking conversation. I couldn't get out of it. But going on and on about how he has some type of system, and now he's kind of, won all this money because he's got a connection at it was either MGM or Caesars. I'm not sure what the heck it was here. Who's basically, tipping them off, saying, "Hey, you know what? This line's going to jump 2 or 3 points here. Can I, bet that's going on?" I don't know. I was half paying attention, half trying to kind of worm my way out of it. The only thing that I actually know is that this guy was hell bent that Alabama was going to blow out Georgia in the national championship game here.
Mm-hmm.
So what did I actually do? I faded the prick. I took my $100. I put it kind of on Georgia and won that way. So right after kind of that, after this guy wailed about how he hasn't lost a bet in 2 months here, he comes out, puts his like a stake in the ground.
Yep.
About a national championship game. So I mean, whenever I hear any of that stuff, it's basically always in one ear, out the other. And I don't know, that's just kind of like my whole take on the conspiracy theorists that are out there that are convinced that the NFL, if not all sports, are fixed.
Yeah.
Then don't watch. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I just think that it's a hard jump to get into that. And I mean, there's some great storylines. Look at the, Joe Burrow going on to take the Bengals to the Super Bowl in his second year. These things, to be honest, I don't think could be scripted. If you really if you really think the NFL is going to script, their best topics, it's going to be Brady, going and getting one last Super Bowl, and then walking off into the sunset, which he didn't get a chance to do. My guy Matt Stafford shut him down and put him into early retirement.
Early retirement?
Well, he,
I don't know
if he would have won that game, he would have had one more
early
game.
retirement, but we'll see. But
No,
I don't know. Anyway,
he would have won. He would have played in one more game before retiring. So that I count as early retirement. Yep. Even if it is one game. So, all right. So what else do we got for this episode here, Mark? Should we start talking a little Super Bowl here?
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of different things here. Let's just kind of preview the game a little bit here. I mean, if I just put one more slide up here, things like that. So we're kind of like, there, we're on the next topic here. So obviously, February 13th, 2022, taking place SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles, California. It looks like kickoff. When they always say that kickoff is at 6:30, is that like an estimate or something like that? Because it just always seems like they always tell you that it's going to kick off at 6:30, and then it's like
it never does.
It's 7:05, and it's like, all right, well, when the hell is this thing kind of going to start? So
yeah, absolutely.
I guess 6:30 ish is what I'm thinking. What I've actually read or what I'm kind of seeing is when the game starts. If that actually starts, actually, we should actually make that pick. Will the freaking game kind of going to start at 6:30?
That's a prop. That's a prop.
So
When does the what time does the actual game start? But I just got to ask because anyone watching, they'll probably be thinking of it. Since you got Aaron Donald on this, the Supper Bowl, is it because Aaron Donald's going to eat?
look at that. Um, so hey, you know what? I never said that I was kind of like a great kind of like speller. So you know what? I'm gonna freaking fix that right now.
There we
Hey,
go.
you
Awesome.
never
I still think Aaron Donald's going to
you never
eat though. This picture of Donald right next to Burrow is going to be happening quite a lot.
usually when you kind of dig around for these things, I'm kind of like surfing for all right, well, what kind of picture I can just use as like a filler, and
Mhm.
like a jerk, I kind of spend more time than actual necessary just to kind of put something here. This was one of the first things that popped up here. I'm like, you know what, this is cool. I'm using it. So
Nice, yeah, there
I
it is.
thought it was a cool kind of picture. So anyway, for the game, lines opens up at 4.5. I actually seen from my local. I still use some on underground people. I'm playing around with some of the legalized kind of sports books as well. But I've seen FanDuel as well as my underground kind of guy, move that line from 4.5 to 4. I thought that was kind of interesting. So
Mhm.
here we are on Friday. Um, line's been out for 4.5 kind of days now. All right,
Mhm.
it's going to drop a half a point in some kind of locations. I thought that was kind of interesting. Looks like Cincinnati Bengals are the sentimental favorite. I can actually state that because StatementGames has put up a game for the Super Bowl,
Okay.
and some of the early picks that we're kind of seeing. I'd say anywhere between 58 to 59% have started incorporating Bengals picks in terms of the Rams will not win by 4.5 into their suite of kind of 10 picks.
Okay.
And I'm also kind of seeing that the community, 65% of the people are actually seeing that, or actually incorporating the over 48.5% into their picks kind of as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And let's see here. Obviously, you are a Matthew Stafford, fanboy.
Yep.
I actually just think that the Rams are the better team. So I'm I'm not 100%, but I'm kind of like 75% there with regards to the Rams kind of taking this game here. So those are some of the things that I'm actually saying with regards to the Super Bowl. But what do you think? How do you see this game? Any other storylines or tidbits that are popping out at you?
Yeah. So I think this is one of the better game scenarios that could have come out of this. Obviously, you know, Buffalo being able to make it in, or the Chiefs could have been interesting, and as far as the balance of the AFC team, I think that the Bengals have an issue with their offensive line, and that while they've been able to put it together, like they've been winning, things have been going their way, and the Chiefs definitely have a decent defensive line. I just don't think it stacks up to the Rams. I think that is going to cause major problems for Joe Burrow. I'm going in on the sacks for the Rams.
And
I
just real
think
quick, you
that
could take this down
take
real
the
quick. I just need to fix the next slide as well.
yeah. Um, I think that I am definitely going to be taking the over. I mean, really depending on where the line is for the sack total, but I would probably want to say 4 or 5. So if it's like a 4.5 um, sacks, I might take the over still. Um, and I think that's going to be the main thing. And then it really is going to come down to Stafford. What Stafford shows up? Is it playoff Stafford? Is it crush under pressure Stafford from the regular season? That's going to be this is Stafford's game to lose, in my opinion. I think he can sling it just as good as Joe Burrow. He's got probably as good, if not better, weapons with Cooper Cup. Jamar Chase is an amazing electric player. And T. Higgins there comes in as a good number 2, but I think Stafford and the Rams with Cup, Odell, and Van Jefferson, as well as even their tight end there, Higbee. I put it on the Rams as more talent. That's just kind of what I see. So I think it's Stafford's game to lose. What do you think?
I'm kind of like feeling the same way. I just think the Rams are a little bit better of a team. I think I mean, I would actually take, I would take, unless the line had jumped up to like 5.5, 6. That's the only reason why I would actually start to, you know, maybe lean my sentiment back over to the Bengals. But I'm starting to kind of feel more confident at the Rams, especially if I actually started to see the line drop from 4.5 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's something like there with the fact that I mean, look, the Bengals are going to be out there next week, but Rams aren't going anywhere. They're kind of staying like at home. So there's a couple of things that I'm actually looking at for this game. As we talk about this now, obviously we can talk about a lot of different things here, but we reserve the right to change our minds. I mean, the game's not for another eight
Yeah,
eight or I'm sorry, like 10 days or so.
yeah.
So I mean, these are just some of the things that I'm kind of looking at here. I pulled up this one thing here. I thought this was kind of interesting. So um, I always kind of feel that you get guys like Burrow and Stafford and hey, you know what, Cincinnati can move the ball and things like that, but it always feels like I get burned on betting like the over on these Super Bowl games. And I was like, all
Okay.
right, you know what? It just seems like a lot of these teams get off to a slow start. So I want to kind of see if there's any type of trend or is there any type of like research that kind of gather around. Hey, I mean, look, this is not a regular season game. It's not even kind of like a playoff game. This is like the mecca. This is like there's a reason as to why they call this like a big game. So it's just human nature to let emotions and jitters to kind of be present in the moment, and it might take a little bit of time for that to kind of like subside and kind of go away before everything goes back into the normal. So I just wanted the community to be kind of aware. I know that there's a lot of people who are out there within the Statement Games community though that are banking on the over 48.5. But just be cautious of like that first
Mhm.
quarter. I mean, you've only had well basically 80% of the time in the last 2 years, you've never had a game kind of going to go over 10. So I kind of like do the averages. The fact that the Rams are playing at home and them being a little bit familiar and comfortable within their surroundings kind of scares me. But one of the things that I'm actually looking at, and I think it's something that I'm probably going to be looking to play, is the under 10 points in the first quarter.
Ooh. Okay.
So I think I'm kind of like getting almost like a full 2 point kind of like break. I think the average works out to I think the math works out to 8.1 or something like that points scored in the first quarter over the past 10 years. You got a young quarterback in Burrow. Again, we've talked about this past year. I'm always concerned about younger players being prepared and ready for the moment. I don't think you can actually ever be ready or prepared for a moment like this. And let's be honest, besides from this year, and again, he's got that check mark like checked. Um, Stafford's never like won like the big one as well. So he's won a couple of playoff games. He's gotten that monkey off the back here, but this is a completely separate, different kind of bowl game. So
Yep.
that's one thing that I am looking at from a prop bet perspective. My local guy, and I've actually seen it like on FanDuel as well.
Mhm.
It's got a line of 10 in the first quarter, so I'm looking to play that is one thing that I'm keen on. What do you think of that?
I really like that, and I like this graphic and what you've shown here, especially with those first quarter points. That makes a lot of sense. And I remember going back to last year, thinking, "Holy cow, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, this is going to be a shootout. It's going to be a foot race between Mahomes and Tom Brady to the end," and it just wasn't. It seems like a lot of times when we have these ideas of what's going to happen in the Super Bowl,
And you can take this down, by the way. Yeah, unless you
yeah,
want to leave it up, but whatever. Leave it up,
yeah,
take it down, whatever you want.
it just doesn't, necessarily happen. As you look into this graphic, like there hasn't, outside of, the winning team running up the score, the last 2 years. If you go back, it wasn't until since 2018 that the game was really close and a back and forth type of foot race. So you got 2018, and then you go back to 2017 where Atlanta was up 28-2 or something, 28, whatever the the New England Patriots use as their slogan, and then they came back. So that wasn't until way in the fourth quarter. So that game wasn't that back and forth. And man, just thinking about, I think you'd
I
really
mean,
have to
look, even
protect
in
both
the
of them.
Philadelphia New England game, 41-33 here, 12 points scored in the first quarter. So
Right.
obviously, there's just a big difference between how the first quarter played out in comparison to the remainder of the game.
Yeah, and really, if you look at the last 10 years, there's two games here that I remember as being real foot races and back and forth, like what we're projecting to happen here between the Rams and the Bengals, because I do believe that the Bengals are going to be able to figure it out and score some points, because that's just what Joe Burrow does. I also think he's going to be put on his back a lot, so. It's just not a common way for the Super Bowl to go. It's more common to be a struggle. And I think that first quarter, as you say, it's probably going to be both teams figuring it out. And so I like that bet. I will probably put a little money in my FanDuel account and
Yeah,
take
you
that
like that
bet.
one? Well,
Yeah,
I mean, look, we got a full week and some to
yeah.
think about it. But again, making picks, I want to make some picks. Just want to start, outlining some of the things that I'm talking about. Now, you actually brought up a couple really interesting points here because it sounds like you're big on Donald. Now, I haven't seen any lines specifically on him come out as of yet. Um, which is why I'm kind of like, and I agree with you. I'm just kind of like, taking a look at some of like the Von Miller stuff because I think it's going to be
Mhm,
one or the other. Either feast the famine, let's start double teaming Donald and
mhm,
leave some opportunities open for Von Miller, or hey, you know what? Let's take our chances on Miller. So Von Miller is kind of like averaging about 3.3 combined tackles per game
mhm.
on some of the books that I've actually seen. I've seen that line as high as 5.5, 5.5 combined tackles for the game.
Okay.
So I actually had a conversation. I can't name any names, but I mean, I have a great data partner in Q4 connecting our data. Now, again, it's
Mhm.
almost like the same type of conversation that I had with the guy at the bar a couple of weeks ago. But this is a data scientist. I mean, this
Sure.
guy does nothing about kind of like geek out of data. And he's got a pretty bold prediction on Von Miller, kind of like about like 2.5, 3 combined tackles for that game. So I just think that maybe the under on that prop is something that I might take a shot on as well,
I like that. I do. And I think it,
especially if
it
it's a you know 5.5. I mean, I
right.
can't see
Yeah,
it going
that's
6, but
feels really high for what he does. He is a pretty close to a strict pass rusher. And I think that, so what to keep in mind is the fact that I believe there's four guys. So you got Aaron Donald, you've got Greg Gaines, you have Von Miller and Leonard Floyd. All four of those guys are able to penetrate that line and able to get in and make sacks, make tackles, stop people behind the line of scrimmage. And so I think this will be one of those games where they're all going to play a role and they're all going to get different points where they can get to either the quarterback or the running back in the backfield. So I like it to be spread out, the tackles to be spread out, and not one person having a big peak like that. So yeah, Von Miller under the 4.5 combined tackles, I could definitely see it. Or even if that line changes to 5.5, I definitely like it even more.
then I just pulled up another graphic. I thought this was fairly kind of interesting as well. I mean, these guys they just love quarterbacks.
Hmm.
So I didn't feel like I was getting a lot of value. So if you take a look at Stafford, like MVP kind of like prop or odds right now, he's at kind of like at a plus 115. However, although I do like the Rams here, I'm thinking about fading myself like a little bit here by kind of putting some money on Joe Burrow from an NV kind of perspective. You're getting
Ooh,
plus 230. If I again, I'm looking at the past kind of 10 years. Seven MVPs out of the past 10 have been awarded to the quarterback position.
yep.
And I mean, I think these guys basically kind of beg or invent new ways to try and get their stars or the quarterbacks like this MVP award here. I didn't think Brady was that great last year. I didn't think Mahomes was that great 2 years before that. And if you kind of take a look at situations like Von. I mean, Peyton Manning couldn't freaking throw the ball more than 20 yards.
Mhm.
So you had to kind of and guys like Miller just went off. I think in my notes here, in that game, Super Bowl 50, 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 pass defended. But if they would have found a way to give Manning that MVP, they would have. They had no choice but to give it
Mhm.
to Von Miller. The last defensive guy before that, Malcolm Smith. I mean, the guy had freaking 10 tackles, a fumble recovery, and an INT for a TD. So unless
Yep.
you actually have like a situation like that, the MVP is going to a quarterback, and I think you're getting pretty good value in the event that, hey, you know what? Say Cincinnati pulls off the upset. I mean, if something like that's going to happen, odds are Burrow's going to have to come up and play well. Even if he
Yep.
plays okay, he can still get it. And at plus 230, I still think it's going to value there. And then I'm looking at
Mhm.
the Julian Edelman one. I mean, in the Super Bowl here, you had 10 catches for 141 yards. Brady only had 262 total yards, and I mean that final score was 13-3. So
Yeah.
unless you're coming across a situation like that here, I think the odds are, you know, pretty much
It,
in favor of the quarterback winning it.
right, right. And I think that if you're going for the best price, Joe Burrow's the slam dunk, because if he comes through and he is he wins the game is won by the Bengals, it's going to be because of him and what he's done. So you're going to have the best shot at getting a decent payday. Stafford, I think, is the kind of shoe in. We think that the Rams are favored, so if the Rams win, like that's as expected, and if they do, then Stafford's going to be the MVP, because I can't see them going and giving it to Cooper Cup, uh, because of, you look at these stats here, it generally goes to a quarterback. Obviously, it did go to Julian Edelman, but look at how many times Tom Brady has been listed on here. I think that they, maybe in that game recognized, well, let's give it to someone other than Tom Brady, and they gave it to Edelman
I mean, the
for
game. I mean, was it? I forget. What was it? 3-0 at halftime. The score kind of that game. I mean, the final score was 13-3.
right.
Goff didn't necessarily. Well, Goff sucked.
Yeah,
And it's not like Brady was
he wasn't
hitting it
lighting it
out of the
up.
ball.
It was,
Yeah,
yeah,
he did
Edelman was
great down the
creating the
stretch,
play.
obviously, but it's
Yeah,
just it's a quarterback's game.
right. Yeah, and I think that if Stafford would get it before Cup, uh, unless it was something where the Rams just barely won. If Stafford throws any interceptions in this game, he may not get the MVP. So that would be the only time that I would say that Cup could come away with it. Um, but then they could lose the game if Stafford starts throwing interceptions, and then it goes to Joe Burrow. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I like it. I think that, yeah, if you're looking for the value, it's Joe Burrow, and maybe if you really want a good payday, taking that Cup and just hoping for that's more of a gamble pick in my opinion. So
From a Rams perspective, the only other thing that I thought was really kind of interesting, um, just because the value kind of stuck out at me. I mean, you can actually get I mean, to your Cooper Cup point, I think it's plus 550.
yeah,
So I thought that was very interesting. But then again, I'm also thinking, hey, you know what? If Cup is going to go off for 2 touchdowns, 100 kind of plus yards, you're competing against Stafford.
yep,
And in my opinion, the pendulum will always swing towards the quarterback.
right. Yeah, and that's what I would see. I think it would really be a tough window to get through for for Cup to actually get the MVP. Now, if it was something real crazy where Cup does like a Philly special and throws a freaking bomb to Odell Beckham that causes like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
win of the game, sure. Like,
Or
but
if they stick him back on like on a punt return and he takes kind of like a one back, see that. But you're right. Yeah, I never thought of that. Reverse and I don't
yeah,
know. He
but
throws
that's a
throws a
lottery
pass
ticket.
to Beckham.
That's an absolute lottery ticket where picking a quarterback is a little more surefire. I think you're going one or the other, and that's just the way this game's going to play out. So,
And then the last thing that I actually have here, I thought I got a good deal on this. The
ooh,
other way that I'm fading my most likely Rams pick, I mean, the pop report that I saw on this card here was less than 50. I believe it was almost like 33, kind of like in circulation in terms of SGC 10s.
okay,
Extremely affordable. Less than $100 here. So I bought it on. I want to say I got this on Monday. The card hasn't come yet, but I'm thinking, hey, you know what? If Burrow wins, if Burrow and Cincinnati kind of wins, the card's going to take it will pop.
yep,
It's going to go up like a little bit. It will go up like a little bit more if he kind of hits one of those dramatic game-winning plays, or if he takes home like an MVP kind of award, something like that. And if it doesn't, something like this will still hold value.
yep.
I'll probably kind of hold on to it, and then maybe kind of look to flip it maybe like a week or two heading into the start of the 2022 season.
Yeah, I really like this purchase, especially at that price. I love the prestige cards, mainly for one, their affordability, and two, the look and feel of them. I've looked, now looked at quite a different array of the lower end card styles, and Prestige is the only one that I actually really like their design. And so with this one, you're getting it, 70 plus shipping. It's a 10, and you've already got it, boxed up and everything. This to me, I mean, I, maybe I'm not as much in the flipping, mindset. I think that I would keep this for a couple years because I think Joe Burrow's going to be fighting.
Yeah,
This isn't going to be his first Super Bowl. I honestly think so you might be looking at something that could be, 200 in a couple years.
maybe. I mean, we'll see. I mean, look, the good thing about this stuff here, I mean, there's absolutely no rules, and where if you do flip a card, there's nothing preventing you from buying the card back.
Right.
So again, I'm looking at this as possible investments. We are entrepreneurs. We need kind of cash flow. Getting anywhere from a $50 to $100 profit is not life altering or changing. But like you and I always talk about here, little things like this do help keep the lights on. If it
Yeah.
pays a GoDaddy bill or some, I don't know, the car insurance or part of the car
Sure.
insurance connecting bill. I mean, this stuff connecting helps, but these are the things that I'm kind of looking at and where, hey, you know what? I'm looking at things like this more and more. It's very scary for me to take possession of an asset in the form of a betting ticket.
Hmm.
And it's almost like an option, and where that asset is going to either appreciate in value or basically go to zero in a matter of 2 nanoseconds.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what type of bet that I'll pull on the Rams, but I kind of figured something like this is either a medium term investment, worst case scenario, but basically a way for me to minimize my risk from.
Yeah.
I'm a degenerate at heart. I mean, I'm going to eat wings, drink a lot, watch the Super Bowl, and play about 4 or 5 different bets for the Super Bowl. I mean, that's going to happen.
Hmm.
So I just kind of figured that the card is one way to potentially offset any losses that I could potentially incur.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because I have my own bet. I haven't gone through. I do have a pretty nice looking Cooper Cup prestige card in my collection. Talking about cards, but talking about outright bets. I bet on the Rams to win the Super Bowl back in early November
Nice.
at plus 650.
Wow. Wow. That's a good one.
So yeah, I put $50 on it. Wish at this point I would have done more. And what's
No, of
interesting,
course now.
well,
Ah,
yeah,
so you gotta bet the Bengals.
I gotta bet the Bengals now
Yeah.
to cover my yeah, to at
At
least get
least
that
walk
fifty
away with
bucks.
something. I mean, you put $50 on it. So you said it was plus 650 or 600.
650.
All right, so you'll cash out like 300 and change.
375.
So put a freaking $100 on the Bengals.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe 75 with the spread, and I don't know, 25 on the money line.
Yeah. And it's so what was interesting is for a few weeks there, as the Rams were going through the playoffs, FanDuel was trying to get me to pull my money out. They were offering
Really?
me, yeah. So they offered me like after the first going into the playoffs, I think it was like 150 off of my $50. It got up to like
Those
250, and I
fucking
kept thinking
snakes.
about
They're
like,
trying to get you. We're gonna get them, dude.
yeah,
You know
I
what?
was like,
Screw that, hedge stuff.
what
We're gonna
point
take.
would I take my money out? Like if they offered me 325 this week, would I take that? Would you take that?
Well, we got to get some comments in the below if people are
Yeah.
kind of like listening kind of like this far. What would you do? How would you actually play it? It doesn't make any sense for you to lose $50. Somehow you gotta at least get your money back and kind of like let it ride here. But what are some thoughts and kind of like ideas on what you should do with
Yeah.
basically you're holding a winning ticket if you play it right.
Right. Yeah. It's favored to win. And
Being in a
so
position where you can't lose is a good position to be
yeah,
in.
yeah. So I'll definitely go and hedge my bet a little bit going into this game. Maybe take that Joe Burrow MVP ticket and maybe something, just I want to make sure I get my $50 back one way or the other. I think is
Yeah, well then I think the smart thing to do is just put like 60 or $70 on the Bengals with the spread to win.
yeah. So all right. Well, there we go. Any other topics you want to cover today, or are we gonna push it to Super Bowl weekend there, Mark?
No, that's it. We'll go ahead and fill out a card, at least one for next week, while kind of like talking about some other things as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And we'll
So
go
for
from there.
everyone out there, make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, making picks, as well as following on social. I'm sorry, I completely messed that up. The YouTube channel is Statement Games Inc. The show is Making Picks, so hit the subscribe and the little bell button so that you get notified when we have new shows. Follow on all social medias at Statement Games, as well as make sure you're playing StatementGames.com. Download the apps from the App Store, and yeah, we'll be back next week with a Super Bowl special episode of Making Picks, where we will be finally putting some picks into a ticket and getting ready for the big game. Mark, it's been great getting back into the saddle with this, and I look forward to talking next week.
Talk to you soon. Take care.